In the early 1970s, a series of disappearances began to terrify communities across the United States. Young women, college students, full of life and ambition, were vanishing without a trace. There were no witnesses, no clear suspects, and almost no evidence. But behind these crimes was a man who appeared, on the surface, to be completely ordinary, intelligent, charming, well-spoken. His name is not important, but his story would later become widely known across the United States. Ted Bundy was born in 1946 and raised in what many believed was a stable environment. To those around him, he seemed like a typical young man. He attended college, studied law, and he even worked on political campaigns. People often described him as polite, articulate, and trustworthy. This outward image would later become one of his most dangerous weapons. But beneath that carefully constructed personality, something far darker was developing.
In 1974, reports of missing women began to increase, particularly in Washington state.
The victims were often young, attractive college students with long, dark hair. Witnesses began reporting a strange pattern. Several women had been approached by a man who introduced himself as Ted. He often wore a sling or pretended to be injured, asking for help loading items into his car. Moments later, the women were nowhere to be found. One of the most unsettling aspects of his method was how he used manipulation rather than force. He gained trust first. He made his victims feel safe, and then, when they least expected it, he struck. As the investigation progressed, police began connecting the cases. Descriptions of the suspect were similar. The name Ted kept appearing, and witnesses described a tan Volkswagen Beetle,
an ordinary car that would later become one of the most recognized symbols of the case.
Despite these clues, Bundy continued to evade capture. His crimes soon spread beyond Washington, reaching Oregon, Utah, and Colorado. The pattern remained the same. Young women vanished, often from public places, with little to no evidence left behind. The lack of forensic technology at the time made the investigation even more difficult. Law enforcement agencies struggled to coordinate across state lines, allowing Bundy to move freely. In 1975, a major breakthrough finally occurred. Late one night, a highway officer stopped a vehicle for a routine check. The driver was a man no one would forget.
Inside the car, officers found disturbing items: a ski mask, handcuffs, rope, and other tools
that suggested criminal intent. Bundy was arrested, but at that time, police could not directly link him to the murders. He was initially taken into custody in connection with a serious case. During the proceedings, he showed a notable level of confidence that shocked many observers. He chose to represent himself in court, using his legal knowledge to manipulate proceedings. He smiled, joked, and behaved as if he were in control of the situation. To some, he didn't look like a criminal at all. But behind that confidence was a calculated mind, constantly searching for an escape. In 1977, he managed to do the unthinkable. While being held in a courthouse in Colorado, he escaped by jumping out of a second-story window. He disappeared into the mountains, surviving for days before being recaptured. It was a shocking failure of the justice system, but even more shocking was what happened next. Months later, Bundy escaped again.
This time, he carefully planned his escape from jail, losing weight to slip through a small opening in the ceiling.
He vanished once more, this time traveling across the country to Florida. What followed would become some of the most disturbing events in his story.
In January 1978, Bundy entered a sorority house at Florida State University. Inside, he attacked multiple women in their sleep.
The violence of these crimes shocked even seasoned investigators. Unlike his earlier methods, these attacks were chaotic, suggesting a loss of control. Just weeks later, he abducted and murdered a 12-year-old girl named Kimberly Leach. This incident brought increased attention and drew focus nationwide. By this point, he was no longer just a person of interest. He was one of the most wanted criminals in America. In February 1978, his run finally came to an end. He was arrested after being pulled over by police in Florida. This time, investigators had enough evidence to link him to multiple murders. The trial that followed became a media spectacle.
Public coverage followed every moment, turning him into a figure of widespread attention and curiosity. During the proceedings, he continued to show a highly controlled and persuasive personality. He even took an active role, questioning people and challenging information presented. Around that time, he received the harshest possible outcome. Even while in custody, he continued to draw attention. He gave interviews, hinted at the extent of his crimes, and spoke about his thoughts and motivations. Some believed he was still manipulating the public, controlling his image even in his final years.
In 1989, Bundy was executed, but the story did not end there.
It is believed that he may have been linked to many incidents, possibly more than 30, though the exact number may never be known. His crimes exposed critical flaws in law enforcement communication and led to major changes in how serial crimes are investigated. More importantly, his case forced society to confront a disturbing reality. Things aren't always the way we imagine. He didn't match the usual expectations. He was educated, well-spoken, and outwardly normal. He used trust as a weapon, and that is what made him so dangerous. Today, his story continues to be studied, not just for the crimes themselves, but for what they reveal about human behavior, manipulation, and the deeper side of human behavior. Because in the end, the biggest question is not just what happened, but how someone who seemed so ordinary could hide something so monstrous in plain sight.